One of the hardest things to do when there's very few people around is to get a crowd, as we found out. Hello there. Are you up for being?
100% atheist.
What?
I'm 100%.
Oh, perfect,
atheist.
perfect. Can you stand your ground?
Absolutely.
Good. Come over here.
Knocking them down. 50% of this place shouldn't be in the Bible.
Who?
Because 50%.
50% of who?
Shouldn't read the Bible.
Who are you referring to?
50%. Women.
Oh, women. Why women?
Where's the chapter on the women? Where's one sentence?
Have you heard of the
women?
Book of Ruth?
What?
Have you heard of the Book of Ruth in the Bible?
Hidden. That's hidden.
Hidden? Hidden?
Yeah.
Why is it hidden? Obviously, this woman doesn't really know what she's talking about.
And I know the new.
Have you heard of that book? What's that called? Esther, Book of Esther, right?
That was, anyway.
It doesn't. What did you say? There's no women mentioned in the Bible?
Oh, unless you're. I'm gonna go for my.
Obviously, Mary, the Blessed Mother.
Oh,
she's not mentioned, no.
Oh my God.
And her. I think you were trying to say there's no women in the Bible.
Oh, I know.
That's not what you said, is it though? Suppressed. Deborah, the great champion, the warrior woman. Never heard of her?
Time of the patience, but women are so suppressed in the Bible.
Where?
Timothy, not allowed to teach.
Ah, well, does it say that?
Yes, it does.
That's where you're wrong. It says, I do not permit a woman to teach. Or no, I'm not going there. I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man. That's what it actually says. But there are plenty of places where women can teach. Such as, hello.
Oh, please do.
I'd like.
My name is Marie Ridout.
Okay.
Total atheist, and that should be.
But we should be questioning whether you are a total atheist, because I've never met one yet. There are people who claim to be atheists, but when you ask them to back that up, they go, "Oh, I can't back it up. I just make these claims."
Could you pause it?
Huh? What?
The New Testament was written by Saul, first of all, 45 years after Jesus died. He didn't even see him.
By Saul?
Paul.
Yeah. So you're
45 years after Jesus died. See, I'm trying to find it. I have to go because I got to set a train. One day I'm going to stand here and talk.
All right. Well, good. I'd like to hear that.
085.
So, I'd like to address that situation. Okay. Now, the lady doesn't have to respond, but she said she's a total atheist. Now, as I've said many times before, there are all kinds of people who claim to be atheists, such as people who are real atheists and those who think that they're atheists, but they're actually agnostics. Okay? Do you know what I mean? Do you know the difference? Where are you from? So you speak any English? Oh, good. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, come here a second. Would you like to be interviewed a little bit? Here, you can have this microphone. Okay. Put it on your...
Yeah, okay.
Now, in France,
Yeah.
there are probably quite a number of atheists.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, if you're not an atheist, you're either religious or an atheist. Basically, it's what I've heard of in France. Now,
Yeah.
I say that there are two types of atheists, okay? Either the ones who say, absolutely, I know for a fact that there is no God. Those are rare. Then there's the other type of atheist who said, I don't believe that there's a God. Then there's a bit of a difference, okay?
Yeah.
I would say she's making claims that she couldn't possibly know. For example, if I was to make the statement, there is no gold in China, that's a big claim. Because how would I know that unless I know every single inch, every area of China? I would have to have said, I know China like better than anybody. Not just better than anybody, I know it all. In fact, I've looked in every Chinese person's mouth. I've looked in every house. I've looked under every rock. And I can tell you for a fact there is no gold in China. That's a big claim. Who can say that unless someone who knows everything?
Mm-hmm.
If I was to say there is gold in China, that's easier. All I got to do is find one piece just to say there's gold in China. So this is where the problem with that sort of a claim is. When someone says, I know for a fact that there is no God. Because nobody can say, unless they're claiming that they know everything. And she's not going to claim she knows everything. She'll probably say, I just don't believe that there's a God. And that is a difference, because then it boils down to beliefs, what you believe, and why do you believe those certain things. Do you understand? To yourself, where would you stand on that?
I think I'm an atheist.
You think you're an atheist? Yeah. Which category of atheist? Maybe the first or the second?
The first was more...
Absolutely, I know for a fact.
Yeah. What I believe is just like non-atheists or people who believe can prove anything.
Do they have to prove anything?
Not prove, but we don't have any real evidence that there is something or there is not something.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay. Well, there are many people who have tried to address that kind of thing. For example, you may have heard someone say, this is a building. How do you know, or do you know if there was a builder or not? Was there a builder who built this?
Probably.
Probably. Why?
Because there is a fact.
Okay. But even though you may never see the builder, if someone told you, no, there was no builder, you would have to say, I'm sorry, I can't believe that there was no builder. And that's a complicated design, isn't it? Okay. And when you see artwork in an art gallery, if someone said, do you think there was an artist painted these pictures? Well, the art itself should be enough evidence that, yes, an artist did this. Even though you may never in your lifetime see or hear or know who that artist is, it doesn't matter, because you know there was an artist. And these things are complicated things. Do you think that this world has a lot of complicated things in it?
Yeah.
Like the insects. I was talking to a girl last night who was trying to kill a fly. And I said, can you imagine a little tiny drone made by the military that could be that size? If it could fly around and have little motors inside and little legs and eyes, if they could make that, that would be quite an accomplishment. Now, maybe one day they will make something that small that it could do that. But it's what's powering it? What gives it the power? So that's just one example of design. And so therefore, I would go number one with the idea there's definitely design in what we see. Now, what we don't like necessarily is who this designer is. Now, you might say there is no designer. But then you look at the evidence and you say, well, there is a designer. Another thing is language. Do you know, you speak French, I'm speaking English, this man speaks Spanish, okay? Language is complicated.
Yeah.
And we find language, you couldn't even create your own language easily.
Yeah.
They say that if a person hasn't learned language by the time they're 3 or 4 years old, they will never be able to speak. Why is that? And so how many languages are there in the world? And you recognize language when you see it or hear it, right? You go, that's not just made up, that's a language. You can hear certain syllables. And even in nature and around us, we see mathematics is a language. We see DNA is a language. And we see all kinds of evidence of language. And yet, where does it originate from, language? If no one could speak, how do we have speech? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's the evidence begins to mount up. But I think the greatest evidence is this, that everyone really does know that there's a God, but they don't want to admit it. And they try to suppress that truth because they don't want to be sort of thinking that I might have to be accountable to a certain person or being one day. And that's the thing. Maybe sometimes it's religion. Like the lady we were speaking to a moment ago. Could it be that because of her background in religion, she don't like what she heard? It had an effect upon her, and then all religion is bad. But there's a lot of religious people in the world for some reason. Okay, now some of them are looking and searching for something, but there's a God who made all things. Okay, one of the strongest evidences for me. Now, this is for me as a Christian, is this, okay? The very fact that anything exists. Now, we have these exist. We could say that these cards have being. They're being cards. In my pocket, I have, this is plastic and metal and some electronics, being what it is, a key for a card, okay? Now, why is there anything that exists? And rather than not existing, Do things exist?
Yeah.
Why do they exist?
Because we should find a reason for it to exist.
Okay, but why do they exist? Is there any reason why anything exists?
No.
No.
Actually, we don't have any meaning. We are looking for meaning.
You may be. Okay, but put it like this. Was there ever a time when there was nothing? Just nothing?
No.
No, couldn't be. Because if there was a time when there was just nothing, there would still be nothing. So something or someone has always existed. Has to be. Because that would mean that that something or that someone had the power to bring everything else into existence. Because if that's not true, then why do things exist? Did they produce themselves? Could a thing that doesn't exist suddenly think to itself, though it doesn't exist, I want to exist and I'm going to bring myself into existence? It couldn't have the power to non-exist and then bring itself into existence. So the only alternative are two things. It always existed, or something else brought it into existence.
Maybe
right?
the Big Bang.
Well, that's a good point. Had it not been for the Big Bang, we would be kind of stuck. Like I said to some people the other day, where for years, scientists have been trying to tell people that the universe has always existed. But they know that's not true. So they changed it to there was a beginning. We call it the Big Bang, right? And what I say to people is this. If there was no one around to hear it, why call it a Big Bang? Right?
Yeah.
And could it have been simply a big flash of light? Do you know what the Bible's opening words are? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And his opening words were, let there be light. Light was the very first thing God created. Okay? And then he gives us a few details. All it tells us is that he brought into existence everything by his own power of his words. He probably didn't even have to use words. But he brought into existence everything. Because he existed outside of time and space and matter and all of these things. You see? Now, as I said before to many people, again, going back to my key, this key is taking up space. And it is matter. Okay? The universe is basically 5 elements. Okay? They are time, space, matter, motion, and energy. Those are the 5. And you cannot separate one from the other. You can distinguish one from the other, but you cannot separate one from the other because this key is taking up space. If I throw it to you, catch this now, ready? Okay. If I throw it to you, okay, that traveled through space. It took time, it involved motion, it involved energy, okay, and time, space, matter, that's the matter, right? Now, that means that when the universe was created, it would have been those 5 things coming into existence instantaneously at the same time. But therefore, before that, there would have to have been something, some being or something who has all of those things such as timelessness, power, no space. And so when we think of God in the Bible, he's not limited by time or space. He's beyond all of those things, okay? But some people will say, well, why does there have to be a God? Why not just a thing? What's true? Why would it? Why? Let's say something doesn't. Let's say it wasn't a God. Let's say something created everything. But would a thing even think of creating things? Let's say the thing was just matter, or which is created. But let's say it was some non-personal, something non-personal. But why would it do that then? You know, it's different when you're a person, right? You're a person. You have personality. Have you ever done artwork before?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. So when you do artwork, you're displaying your abilities. And if someone said, oh, that's not very good, you feel offended, right? But if they said, oh, that's wonderful, that's good. And I think that God is well able to demonstrate his power, his beauty, his wisdom in all of creation. This is what I can do. Okay? What's the purpose in all of this? It is he's showing himself. But then his greatest achievement or goal, he wanted to make a man and a woman, mankind, who are in his own image and likeness. And there will be fellowship. And that man, that woman would say, this is just wonderful to know who this eternal God is. And that's what happened in the Bible. We have the story of God creation. But of course, then God saying, I have to teach these people moral lessons. I have something here called this tree here. Don't take from this tree. Because if you do, the day that you do that, you will surely die. What did they do? Because they had to learn the lesson somehow, but they took up that tree. It plunged the whole world into darkness, and every single person who's been born into this world has the same kind of nature as them, sinful nature. And so we're going to die physically, but there's also, we'd have to face the judgment of God, for we have been treasonous in rebellion against God. Okay. Now, is there a solution to our dilemma? Because God doesn't want that as his number one goal for us at all. His goal is he wants to fellowship with us. Okay? So let's say that God says, my rescue plan for, what's your name, by the way? Joanna. My name's Michael. Okay?
Nice.
So Joanna, his rescue plan for man and woman is this. Okay? That you'll never be able to be better or good enough to get rid of your sinful nature or anything like that. And you couldn't approach this God in your present state because of sinfulness in our lives. What God did, he personally came into this world and lived as a man, right? Took on human flesh and lived in this world facing the same temptations, facing the same life that we would live, yet he never broke one of God's laws. He never did anything wrong, because he was representing man from a different perspective. He was God in the flesh. He allowed himself to be the human sacrifice. He allowed God to put all of our sin upon him, and he was treated like he had done the wrong when he hadn't. Okay? So the purpose of that was that God could say, all of our sin has been taken and dealt with by Jesus Christ. He was under the wrath of God in our place. On the other hand, God can say, I'll take Jesus' righteous, good life and give it to you, and treat you as if you've lived a perfect life, when we know you haven't, when we know I haven't. And God can say, based upon the perfect righteousness that I see here, which is not yours, I'm going to treat you like you've lived a perfect life, based upon what Jesus did for you. Okay? And then you come into fellowship with God. Now, what is the end goal of all of this? Okay? God says that though this body is going to die, we're going to get a fresh, new body, a free upgrade, okay? A body which will never die and will live forever with God in his presence, wherever that might be, whether in heaven or on earth, whatever. But I'm sure it's going to be much better than any life we've ever known in this life. See? That's what God wants for us, okay? So what is he calling upon us to do? He calls upon us to hear the gospel. Jesus Christ took my place. I believe that. I'll receive what Jesus did for me. And what do I need to do? I need to turn away from my sinful life and realize that that's what got me into trouble in the first place, and receive the life of Jesus Christ. Put your trust in Jesus Christ. So, how does one do that? It's like this. As I've said many times, I don't know if he was French, but he may have been French. The well-known name is Blondin. Have you heard of Blondin? Maybe. Okay, maybe he was French-Canadian. I don't know, because I heard this is in Niagara Falls. This tightrope walker was walking across the tightrope across Niagara Falls. He was an expert at this. He could go backwards, blindfolded. He could do it. And he'd ask the crowd, how many of you think I could walk backwards? Oh, yeah. Every hand was up. Okay, how many of you think I could take someone on my back, piggyback, Put your hand up if you think I can do it. Yeah, we believe you can do that. And then he says, so who's going to be first? Well, that's when they said, it's one thing saying you believe it, another thing saying you believe it enough to say, I'll put my trust in this guy. So what we're saying is that you need to put your trust in Christ and say, Jesus, I will put my trust in you to take me from this world to the next, to give me this new life, to forgive my sins. I trust you, and I want you to be my Lord and Savior. That is what we're encouraging, and that's what God commands us to do in the Bible. So, Joanna, my question to you today is simply this. What will you do with that message? So we haven't heard from you really yet.
Frankly, I don't know. I appreciate that you explained me all these things, but still I don't believe there is. If there is a God, to me there are not only one God, and if there is a God, then it should be really powerful, above all what we can have. And if there is a God, He wouldn't let all this terrific stuff happening.
Okay.
All these wars, all these like inequalities, also abuse in the Christian church, let's be honest, and also in other religions, abusing people. So I'm sorry, but I appreciate, but still it doesn't go on me.
So there's a few things that you could talk about there. One is this sort of idea that if there was a God, we've talked about all the reasons why I think that there's no question about that. But it's not the God that you're thinking of, because you're thinking of a God that would sort out all the world's problems. I mean, let's face it, Jesus didn't come to earth and says, right, I'm here now, and everything finished, Is that what he intended to do? Did he say, I failed in my plan, I was trying to save the world? We have Spider-Man, we have Superman, and now we have Jesus who's gone to save the world. And bad things do happen to good people, do they? Or is it the other way around? Good things happen to bad people?
Both, I think.
Yes, but who's really good? Who's really good? Let's face it, there's really not one person who can say, I'm really good. The only person who fits that description is Jesus Christ. And bad things did happen to him. Also in the Bible, we've got a whole book called the Book of Job right there, about a man who had done nothing wrong and he experienced hardship and difficulties. You know why that is? That's because we're living in a fallen world. Okay? Now, as I said, when you see cars go along the road here, some of them are old, some of them are new. Let's supposing you saw a brand new, let's say a Renault. A brand new Renault car, produced in 2023. Okay? But it's scratched. It's got crash marks all over it. It's broken. It's sitting there with dents in it. Would we come to the conclusion, oh, since when did Renault make crashed cars? Would we say that? Or would we say something has happened to that car since the time it left the factory? What do you think? Which is more likely?
Something happened after, after they made
Right. So you have this idea in your mind, kind of like this. The world is not perfect. Okay. Does that mean that it was that way from the start? Or has something gone wrong?
Maybe something has gone wrong.
Yes, that's my point. That something has gone wrong. And that's well spotted. Well, if you hadn't noticed that, that's what is the whole story of the Bible. Mankind, you said, I'm going to do it my way. I don't want to do it God's way. And you have brought bad results on yourselves. Because the Bible tells us that sin, which is rebellion against God, going against God, results in consequences. Okay, just like when you see that sign there, you see that big sign that says stop. I will not stop. What happens if you don't stop and there's another car coming this way? There could be a collision. Okay, I'll do whatever I like. No one's going to tell me what to do. Or let's say we have speed signs that say 50, 80. Oh, who are they to tell me how to? What I can go wherever. Like, we're not on the autobahns in Germany, but there are laws there for a reason, and they are to restrict people. Okay, But if we break those laws, there are consequences, right? There were consequences. God said, remember what I told you at the very beginning. God said, do not eat from that tree, for the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. Death came into the world. Okay. Now, as I've also said, there's a response to that because God is going to fix the problem later, not just now. There's a day of judgment, first of all, for those who have broken God's laws, and then he's going to restore all things. Okay? So it's good that you notice that these things are the way they are. But the God that you're thinking of could be maybe one that you would dream up of yourself. If you were asked, which God do you want? I want one that gives me whatever I want, that makes all the pain and suffering go away. Everyone's going to win the lottery. In other words, like, have you ever watched? I think it's Evan Almighty, the movie. Like, let's say that you could arrange for everyone to win the lottery. Who would win? Let's say there's 1 million people and the prize is $1 million or €1 million. Prize money, €1 million, and there's 1 million people enter it and they all said, I won! How much do they win?
1 million.
No. €1.
Yeah.
Because the prize money has to be shared,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, alright. Yeah.
See? So if everyone's a winner in that sense, then they don't really win much. Okay? Now, if you say, I want everyone to have everything that they always wanted, all their dreams come true. If you ask these people, what is your idea of the perfect life? They'd say, oh, everything, I'll never die. So they've got this idea of what they think it's going to be like. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is at the moment. But the good news is that God has made promises that he's going to fix it. But there has to be, first of all, that judgment coming first. Because, like, if you think about it, think of all the people who've done wrong in this world. Will they get away free? The murderers, the rapists, serial killers, etc. Are they going to say, there's nothing after this life, I got away with it all? There has to be a judgment, you see. So listen, Joanna, you can take, girls,
Thanks.
you're next up, are you? Oh, no, you can answer the question if you like.
Oh, no, I don't.
What does that say? What does it say?
God is nowhere.
Are you sure it says that? Have a closer look.
Okay.
Thank you for Joanna.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you.
You see how you can read it both ways? Oh, thank you. Nearly forgot. That's all. Now, you said, first of all, God is nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people say that, but they also see that it could also say God is now here, right? So there's two ways, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's a more complicated one. Can you answer that question? By the way, you can have one of those miniaturized versions. Yes. See how well you do with that question.
I'm not great with questions. No, me neither. Or riddles.
Okay, so can you read it?
Yeah.
What's it say? What is greater than God, worse than the devil? The dead eat it, and if the living eat it, they die. Any ideas?
I feel like it's going to be something obvious.
Is there nothing comes to mind? No, nothing at all?
No. Not really.
I've even sometimes tried to help people by dropping subliminal messages to try to help them to get the answer. Just nothing comes to mind at all? No. Even with my subliminal message, you didn't kind of...
I don't know.
Didn't hear it even? Was it so subliminal that you didn't get it? Subliminal, what does that even mean? Is there nothing at all comes to mind?
No.
No? Well, okay, let's talk you through it. What is greater than God? You don't know. Okay, next one. What's worse than the devil?
Humans.
What the dead eat it? What do the dead eat?
Nothing.
There's
Oh,
what?
I got it.
How many times did I say that?
Hello.
How many times did I say the word?
Probably a lot.
What is your answer?
Nothing.
Okay, and the final one? If the dead eat,
Nothing.
they die. If the living eat nothing, they die, right? Okay, what's the first
Because
one
if they,
again?
like-
What's the first one? What's greater than God?
Nothing. That makes a lot of sense because if the living eat nothing, then they die.
And how many times did I say subliminally the word nothing? Like 4 or 5 times?
Yeah. That actually makes 10 times more sense.
No. I won't go to the next, but I do have one more test that you can try to do. Okay. This is
2.
now. This is more of a observational one. Okay.
There's 2.
There's 2.
Can you see 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the old lady, and then there's the young lady.
Well, that's
whatever
good.
that
Well
is.
spotted.
At least.
Well spotted. Okay. Now, what I'm doing today is a little bit of a exercise in religious matters. Okay? You might have seen that. There was a religious word or 2 there. I don't know. And there's one on that one for sure. God is not now here. And I met a woman today earlier who claimed to be an atheist. Okay? When you answered this question, you could have said, well, I don't believe in God, or you could have said there is no devil or anything like that, you know. So it's good to ask those sort of questions. Just a few quick questions for you. If you've done religious studies at school, this is helpful. So, is there a God?
I mean, I'm more like I believe in like more gods than just one.
So more than one. That would be what's called polytheism.
Yeah.
Polytheism.
I mean,
Based on,
I don't have like a religion thingy in my family. I just like believe it more myself.
now, you believe in it based on what? Surely not based on observation. Or is it based on your studies of other religions? Because in Hinduism, for example, I think it's Hinduism or Buddhism, not 100% sure, but they're pretty much the same in this respect. There are 300 million gods in Buddhism. Or let's say Hinduism, to be sure.
Okay.
I should be more clear on these things. I think it's Hinduism. All right, 300 million. Now, this ranges from snails, monkeys, dung beetles, horses, people, rocks, trees.
Is
So
anything?
basically, yeah. Now, it doesn't mean. Does that mean like if you stood on an ant, like I've just killed a god? Or is it just the figments of people's imagination? You see, people, if they were asked to describe God in their own words, they might just invent a god, right? Like make one up. And that's basically what people do because they don't like maybe the God that they have been familiar with in what they were taught, raised in their religion or whatever it is. And so they come up with their own one. Now, hello. So that's the first question, right? Is there a God? You're not sure. Or you are sure, but don't know why you're sure. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure you know why you're sure. Okay, the second question is this. What do you think happens to people when they die?
Sophie.
You
I
can
don't
answer.
know. I feel like you don't know
You
until you die.
feel like it. You like to wait and see, is it?
Yeah.
What if you found out a bit late for that? Wouldn't you want to know for sure? Like, say, for example, you're from Poland, right? I don't know where you're from, but I'm assuming Ireland, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been on holiday before?
Yeah.
Did you ever just go to the airport and just said, let's see where we're going today? Or did you plan in advance?
I didn't.
I know you didn't plan. So let's say even better, someone planned it for you. You didn't know. Did your parents tell you where you're going?
The school did.
Well, maybe you were too small. Who knows? But let's say if it was like last year, right? Would they have said, what's your name?
Sophie.
Sophie, we're going somewhere. And you didn't bother to say, where?
That has happened though.
Sometimes I'm in the car and I didn't know where I was going.
Exactly.
But let's say, for example, normally what happens is people plan to go somewhere. They even pack their bags. They even get passports and things ready. Isn't that right? Okay. So if you knew that when it comes to a journey like that, there's planning involved, what about the big journey of your life? What happens? You're going to die and you're going to say, what happens next? Oh, gosh, I didn't know there was going to be something after this, right? I mean, the Bible says, and I have a waterproof Bible right here, you can check it for yourself. It says this, that it is appointed unto mankind, to die once. And after this, the judgment. Imagine that. That's where you're headed for after this life. Wouldn't you want to be prepared for that? Surely you'd want to be prepared for that, right?
Yeah, no.
Do you think you have a soul?
Yeah.
Okay. Does the soul live on after you die?
Possibly.
Okay. Where would it go?
I have no idea.
These are the things you're supposed to investigate, find out about, right? Right?
Yeah.
Now, these are very important questions because if you're wrong about something like that, it will affect you forever. You understand? Do you understand? Oh, this is my final question, okay? So, because you probably have to go to school or else you're finished for the day.
Oh, we're finished.
Okay. Do you know what the gospel is?
Yes. Pretty much. I just can't
Okay.
remember it.
How would you put it into a few words?
Like a reading.
Oh, so you're meaning the gospels as in the 4 gospels in the Bible.
Yeah.
And that's like saying, I know what they are, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But that's not the gospel, because the word gospel means the good news. So basically, would the apostles of Jesus have gone out onto the streets of the cities and said, we're going to just share to you Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There you go. That's it. What? Is that the message? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? What is the content?
The good news.
Of what? What is the good news?
Of anything.
Anything. I got good news. There's a sale on and pennies. I hardly think that's what they would have been saying, right? Okay. Do you have any idea at all? No. It is the fact that God himself came into this world as a man, born as a baby, right? From the Virgin Mary, right? He lived as a man without sin, didn't break any of God's laws, worked miracles, had disciples, all of that, of course. But then he died. Why did he die? Was it of old age?
No,
No. What did he die of?
he was killed.
He was crucified as if he was a sinner or a guilty person when we know he wasn't. He was taking the place of me and you. If you're a believer, you'd say he took my place. He bore the judgment that I deserved so that I wouldn't have to be judged by God. He was judging my place. Imagine someone taking your place when you're the one who's guilty. Why is he getting crucified? Why is he going through all that pain if he's done nothing wrong? See, he was taking our place, right? And then he died, of course, and rose again the 3rd day. Is that not good news? If he rose again the 3rd day, which he did, then the whole point is that there's hope for everyone else who puts their trust in Christ. That said, death is not the end. We trust him that he's going to take us beyond the grave, raise us up to newness of life. There's all kinds of great things in the gospel. So that's what they would have gone and preached to people. You need to put your trust in Jesus Christ, turn from your wicked ways, and trust in him for salvation. I don't know if you've ever heard that or not, but that's what we need to do. Otherwise, we have to face the judgment of God on our own, and it's not going to be good for us if that's the case. Imagine you've done exams at school, right? What's the pass mark?
40. 40.
40 is pretty low, right? What if you didn't know what the pass mark was going to be and you were supposed to sit exams? Surely you'd like to know in advance what the pass mark's supposed to be. Yeah? Well, here's the deal. Did you know that to get into heaven, the pass mark is not 40%? What do you think pass mark is?
100.
Yeah? Who's going to make that? No one. Okay. So there's good news. Rather than trying your best and saying, well, I got 39, someone else got 41, still way below 100. Okay? That's not going to matter at the end of the day. What you need is a perfect score. And the only one who ever had a perfect score is Jesus Christ. Okay? But if he says, take my score of 100, give it to this girl, give it to this one, and let them stand before God with my righteous life, then God can treat you like you have passed when we know you haven't. He can treat you like you are perfect in God's sight. Does that make sense? Okay, so you've got one of those. I'm just going to give some people. You're not religious. Good, that's fine. So thank you for your time and willingness to participate in this small interview. Thank you very much. Do you know what I have here?
Oh, a Polish Bible.
Here you go.
Thank you.
That was given to me by a friend who says, take these. He only gave me two Polish Bibles, and I gave that one to you. The others were small New Testaments. I gave them. I got one more. So next time I need another Polish person, I might give that to them. You can read that. Okay, Joanna, Sophia,
Jude.
Jude, as in J.
It's short for
Juditha.
Yeah.
So Jude. Okay, there's a book in the Bible called Jude. Hey, Jude. Very good. Well, thanks for stopping. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's a really nice.
Okay. Goodbye. God bless.